I have been doing research on our hidden spiritual origins, especially our spiritual past, these parallel mystery traditions as they're referred to, since 1982. I mean, can't believe it. September 2017, I'm actually celebrating my 35th anniversary of the first moment when I opened the book, so to speak. I was here in Nashville. I'm home today at Orion's Gate, the home Claire and I have here in Nashville. But 35 years ago, I was 19, 20 years old, and I was a sophomore at a small Southern Baptist college here in Nashville. I was going to be an entertainment lawyer, and I went to this Southern Baptist school that had this entertainment law program, but the catch was you had to take Bible study classes. I knew nothing about the Bible, and our professor assigned us to review a book whose implications would impact Christianity. So this is September 1982. I hike it down to the bookstore. Here's a new international best-selling book called Holy Blood, Holy Grail. Basically threw the book out of Christianity, said the whole premise of Christianity is a hoax, but there is a hidden story, a hidden truth in between the lines. If you knew how to read between the lines of this sacred book, you would be able to get to the truth of our origins and our future as well. So that was 35 years ago, and today what I'm going to be presenting is a presentation that I call Our Beautiful Moment. I believe that you and I are the witnesses as well as the participants in perhaps the single greatest moment in human history for thousands of years. We are in the process of transforming ourselves into a different form. And as we're going to discuss, I'm not quite convinced that turning ourselves into machines or transhumans, which is the trajectory that we're on, is the wise route. Instead, I believe we need to connect with our light body selves, our true selves, our original true nature as it's referred. And that's what I want to talk about today. And I'm going to show some artwork that reflects this idea and also connects with the concept that we are true reflections of our Creator. And we'll see how that works as we go. Basic starting idea, concept. All humans have the same body with the same capabilities. Every one of us. It doesn't matter if you are a bodhisattva, if you are Christ, if you are a Buddha. We all start with the same fundamental human body with the same capabilities. And all humans have the same ultimate goal. For thousands of years, the goal has been the same. That is to activate our ascension intelligence and ascend by organically self-realizing wholeness, holiness, perfection, and compassion. That is the definition of ascension, is to attain wholeness, holiness, perfection, and compassion. And this is, of course, what we see reflected in the story of Jesus as well, whether we're looking at Buddhism, Christianity, early Egyptian religion, the Sumerians, all discussed this idea that the reason why we are here is to learn to become more whole, wholly complete, and compassionate. And the various models throughout time have changed, be it a Buddha, a Bodhisattva, a Christ, but the idea is still the same. This works for male and female, masculine and feminine. Ishtar, Inanna are early role models for Mary as an ascended being. In all of these instances, these ascended beings have attained this state of wholeness and holiness, and therefore transform their bodies into a next level of vibration that is referred to as the rainbow light body, or the perfect body, the glory body, the resurrection body. Every single spiritual tradition on this planet for thousands of years has discussed this concept. It's the core that is at each of them, the pulsing heart, if you will, of the world's great spiritual traditions. But it is also the knowledge that they have tried to withhold from us. There's a question about our bodies, and that is, how did our bodies get to be the way that they are? The sudden, miraculous transition from Homo erectus to Homo sapiens, our present form, defies conventional theory of evolution, which states that over the course of millions of years, humans evolved from hunter-gatherers to gardeners to city builders to Mona Lisa painters to transhuman technologists. And there's this steady line of progression. But there's also a missing link or a branch between the more ape-like Homo erectus, which we see here, and us. We share genetics with our ancestors. We share a common origin, but our abilities, our perceived abilities, are perceived to be far greater than our predecessors. How do we go from Homo erectus to Homo sapien to Homo luminous, which is another term for the next step in our evolution? Something happened in between Homo erectus, Homo sapien, and now Homo luminous. The question is, what happened? And that's what we want to talk about in this presentation for Hidden Origins, is what was that something? We all have a good idea what that something was, but what was that something that transformed us? Evolutionary biologist Stephen Jay Gould rocked the zeitgeist in 1972 with his theory of punctuated equilibrium, which states that great changes in species happen very rapidly, followed by long periods of stasis where there's little or no change. And this is where we've been for the past many thousands of years, in a period of stasis where it doesn't look like a whole lot is going on, but in fact, things are about to change in the blink of an eye. Punctuated equilibrium is used to explain the sudden activation of our capabilities in the past, and is also unfolding at this very moment as new capabilities are coming online, literally. So as I was saying, all of us have the same body with the same capabilities. And the question is what separates us from the bodhisattvas, from the Christs, and from the other ascended beings, including Mary, Jesus, Padmasambhava, who we see here beside Mary. They have all activated something within themselves that transformed them from their status as Homo sapiens into what we can refer to as Homo luminous. Something happened, and we want to get a finger on the pulse of what exactly that was. The theory of punctuated equilibrium says that things happen very quickly, but then there are long periods of stasis where nothing happens. Some scientists see a powerful connection between our spurts in evolution and asteroid and comet impacts, the sun, supernovas, gamma ray bursts, and the strong coupling between our solar system and the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And perhaps all of these, or perhaps a combination, are responsible for kickstarting or triggering our evolution. For the first time in perhaps thousands of years, humans know that there's these giant gamma ray pillars coming out of the center of our Milky Way galaxy. And we now know that our galaxy is a sister galaxy to over 1 trillion galaxies in the known universe. We're way out here on the Orion arm of our Milky Way galaxy, and our spiritual quest is to make the most of this precious opportunity that we have to be incarnate in a physical human body at this time, to witness and participate in the change that is occurring. Part of this shift, or evidence of this shift is occurring, is our awareness of our position within the universe. We now are able to map our brother and sister galaxies that are nearby in the local universe. And as I said, we now know that our galaxy is one of 1 trillion galaxies in the known universe. And presumably, trillions of inhabited civilizations dwell within these incredible celestial disks. The cosmic web is a very powerful idea when we start talking about human origins. This image shows the filaments that make up the large-scale structure of our universe. Scientists can pinpoint exactly where the Milky Way is on one of these filaments. And each dot in this image is actually a galaxy or a cluster of galaxies. So when we talk about the question of our origins and where we came from, this is the answer right here. We came from this magnificent cosmic web. And encoded within our soul is knowledge of this magnificent cosmic web. Indra's net, or Indra's pearls, or Indra's jewels is a wonderful parable that goes along with this concept of the cosmic web. It's a 3rd century Mahayana Buddhist legend about the god Indra, who commissions an artisan to craft a vast net across the universe. When this net is complete, at each junction, Indra places a shining jewel. the facets of which reflect every other jewel in the cosmic network. Now, the idea here is that they're talking, of course, about each galaxy as a jewel spread across this web, and each galaxy is connected to another galaxy. The Gnostics, however, would ask us to consider that this jewel is actually the divine spark within us. And if we amp up or fractalize this idea, it tells us that our divine spark, the divine jewel within each of our individual hearts, is collected and connected to a vast net of sacred jewels or souls or hearts spread amongst the earth, spread amongst the galaxy, spread amongst the galaxies, spread amongst the universe. Each jewel represents a single atom, a cell, or life form in the universe, and all are intimately connected with one another. Any change in one jewel, says this story, produces a change, however small, in all the others. Everything is interconnected in Indra's entangled web. Indra's net hangs over Indra's palace on Mount Meru, the axis mundi of Vedic mythology and cosmology. And this net has this multifaceted jewel at each vertex, and each jewel, again, is reflected in all the other jewels. For the Chinese Huan school of Buddhism, Indra's net symbolizes a universe where infinitely repeated mutual relations exist among all members of the universe. So we are basically fractals of the universe. The divine spark, the divine jewel within us, is a tiny spark compared to our planet, compared to our galaxy, compared to the vast net of galaxies. But yet everything is reflected within us, and everything that we do is reflected within the net. Alan Watts wrote, "Imagine a multidimensional spider's web in the early morning covered with dewdrops, and every dewdrop contains the reflection of all the other dewdrops. And in each reflected dewdrop, the reflections of all the other dewdrops in that reflection, and so ad infinitum." That is the Buddhist conception of the universe in an image. This is the Buddhist conception of our origins. This is where we came from and what ultimately each of us is always and eternally connected to. So whether we're talking about a dewdrop or our Earth, our planet, or our galaxy, or the entire web of billions of galaxies, the idea is that we are part of a vast net of creation that never ends. And our soul's job is to become a wanderer, an explorer, a connector of these worlds, and to reflect back into that world our highest intentions, vibrations, and aspirations. We're going to shift gears and talk about another net for a moment, our neural net, our brain. According to physicist Roger Penrose, what's in our head is orders of magnitude more complex than anything one sees in the universe. If you look at the entire physical cosmos, says Penrose, the entire Indra's web, our brains are a tiny, tiny part of it. But they're the most perfectly organized part of it, says Roger Penrose. The cerebral cortex is the outer 2 to 3 millimeter thick covering of gray matter over our brain's two hemispheres. It's about the width of a newspaper. Most of this is the neocortex. Neocortex is Latin for new bark. The neocortex, if we think of our spinal cord as the tree and our brain as the top of the tree, the neocortex is the new bark on the top of the tree. It's the most recent part of our brain to develop in terms of evolution. Again, if we think of the spinal cord as a tree with the brain on top, the neocortex is that new bark. And the neocortex, says Carl Sagan in his iconic book Cosmos, is also where matter is transformed into consciousness. It's also the seat of our soul, according to many philosophical traditions. our soul residing within the pineal gland at the center of our brain. Where the skull divides, there lies the gate of God, says the Taittiriya Upanishad. The neocortex is what makes possible our judgments and our knowledge of good and evil. It's also the site from which our creativity emerges and is home to our sense of self. It's the home of all that aspects of ourselves that define us as uniquely human. I love this beautiful image called Self-Reflected. It was made using an elaborate combination of hand drawing, deep neuroscience research, adapted brain data, and incredible strategic lighting. And it gives this idea of our neocortex as this incredible light center that is enfolded or entangled within Indra's web. The realm of intuition and critical analysis, it is the neocortex where we have our ideas and our inspirations, where we read and write and where we compose our music and do mathematics. Sagan again says it is the distinction of our species, the seat of not just our soul, but also our humanity. Civilization, he says, is the product of our cerebral cortex. But as we're going to develop here, there's a great mystery about exactly how our cerebral cortex was activated. This takes us to the question of the great something that we're trying to get at that stimulated our evolution and prompted us to make the jump from Homo erectus to Homo sapien, and now preparing us to make the jump from Homo sapien to Homo luminous. Sagan believes that extraterrestrials, when they visit our world, will have brains slowly accreted by evolution as ours have. So Sagan isn't believing in punctuated equilibrium here. He's thinking our neocortex was activated by a slow process of evolution. And he also believes that hypothetical extraterrestrial civilizations will share similarities with our neocortex. He believes that any successful long-lived civilization will, by necessity, have resolved the tensions of our various brain components. The reptilian brain, the mammalian brain, the neocortex, always in conflict with one another. Different needs, different hopes, different dreams, different aspirations. Extraterrestrials, too, he says, will have extended their mind extrasomatically into intelligent machines. This is a very important statement by Carl Sagan because it points to the fundamental issue, if you will, about extraterrestrial visitors who some believe had a hand in our origins. What he is saying here, and what other researchers into extraterrestrial civilizations maintain, and I agree with, is that there's only two ways that extraterrestrials will come here, at least two forms, rather. One, they will be machines, robots, or two, they will be in light body form. The reason why it's only those two is because flesh and blood beings cannot inherit the kingdom of heaven, according to the Bible rule. The reason why is our flesh and blood bodies are too fragile to sustain themselves in space. This is why NASA is in the process of turning us into transhumans, part human, part machine, so we can then go colonize the moon, Mars, and beyond. But I don't believe that that's the path that we want to take, and it's not the path I believe that the extraterrestrials we wish to study came to this earth in that form. I believe the ones we want to study came to earth as light beings. And by following that path, we will put ourselves on the path of spiritual ascension. Some of these ideas about transhumanism can be found in my book, The Singularity is Near, in which I document the emergence of the next human. Our point of origin thousands of years ago has led us to this moment right now, in the next 25 years at most, when Homo sapien, as a flesh and blood being, will cease to exist and will be replaced by a transhuman being, a being with synthetic body parts, a being that is more machine than flesh. This is happening right before our very eyes, and we are the generations, the baby boomers, the millennials, and the Gen Xers, who are not just witnessing this transformation, we are the ones who are pulling the trigger on this transformation. My work since 2002, when I began tracking this confluence of technology and its influence on the human body, is solely devoted to trying to wake up as many people as possible that we do not want to turn ourselves into machines. We want to follow the spiritual path. And what we are actually doing is following an ancient impulse to replicate the ultimate power garments of the divine beings. But these garments were not technological. They were spiritual garments. They were aspects of consciousness that these divine beings had activated. They activated their crown of salvation. They wore a rainbow necklace of immortality. They possessed the rings of gold, the elixir of life, and the miracle garment. But these are probably not actual physical garments or tools. These are awakened crown chakras, awakened hearts, throats that speak the truth. They ring with cosmic sovereignty. In other words, they have tapped into a cosmic vibration coming from Indra's web that enables them to be fully sovereign beings. By transforming ourselves into machines, we take away our sovereignty. Even governments today are scared to death of Google. Google's mantra is do no evil, but actually all you have to do is take out the word evil and you have what Google actually is, a force on our planet, among other forces, that is attempting to turn us into slaves. Slaves to a new web, slaves to the internet of things, where our bodies will be linked to our toasters and our microwave ovens and our automobiles and all the other crap that Silicon Valley wants to sell us. They view us as a thing, an object to be manipulated and to be transformed. It's the least spiritual endeavor you can imagine any force on the planet attempting to endeavor to pull off on humanity. But yet we are right in the middle of this transformation. Between now and 2020, you'll see the rise of the robots. After 2020, we'll see the ability of humans to copy the contents of their brain, put it into a robot if they choose, and achieve a sort of immortality that way. But the ultimate goal of the transhumanists is to get us to drop our physical bodies altogether and turn ourselves into cartoons, to turn ourselves into digital avatars that exist in a new simulated reality that they're creating on the web. Every time you go online, you are creating this next or twin version of yourself that interacts with corporations, governments, and intelligences beyond our comprehension. This second self can be thought of as your avatar. Everything that you do on Google, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, eBay is being recorded. Every email that you send is creating the cells, the atoms, the body of this ephemeral light being that will live in this temporary world. It's a form of digital resurrection and ascension. It's not at all what Jesus was able to manifest, or Buddha was able to manifest, or Padmasambhava, or Mary, or Ishtar, or other divine beings. But it's what Silicon Valley wants to see as the next level of human evolution. Not following the path again of Krishna or Jesus, but following the path of Silicon Valley, where they want us to strap on these virtual reality goggles and leave this reality behind and enter into their reality. Facebook's sacred spaces, where we will turn ourselves into a cartoon version of ourselves that will interact with cartoon versions of our friends in a cartoon world. This is their vision of all of human evolution has pointed to this very moment where we lock ourselves in a black box in Silicon Valley. This is the point of all of this? Is this? I don't think so. And what we have to do is wake up from this moment. Our beautiful moment will happen when we realize following this path into digital immortality is not the way we are wanting to go. We are living that turning point. All of human history has been rushing towards. Call it the ascension, the transformation, disclosure, the event, or as I refer to it, the beautiful moment. We're living it. We're breathing it. It's happening at this very, very moment. We are the bridge between two different humans. Homo sapien is over with. Homo luminous is coming online, as is transhumanist. The choices that we make at this moment will affect all of humanity forever. And according to the story of Indra's web, will also affect and be reflected in all other civilizations in our universe. Let's go back and talk about the brain just for a moment. According to John Hoffaker, an archaeologist at the University of Colorado, our neocortex was mysteriously switched on or charged or awakened, my terms, 75,000 years ago. In fact, there is archaeological evidence for the evolution of a human superbrain no later than 75,000 years ago. And I put that on the table as the starting line of our timeline of human origins. Suddenly, human brains began to be linked together through a thought sphere, an intranet, if you will, this superbrain concept. And Dr. Hoffaker's work shows us that this happened 75,000 years ago. What exactly happened is what we want to figure out. What was that something that suddenly triggered the awakening of our neocortex and caused us to leave behind an old into machines? That is I'm going to pop out of it and move forward. Thank you. Whatever it was that happened at that moment, 75,000 years ago, spurred a modern capacity for judgment, but also our capacity for novelty and innovation. By the way, this is the neocortex here that we're seeing all lit up. This next slide, this is the internet, looking very brain-like, and the internet is growing more and more conscious, aware, and intelligent every day. Corporations like Google and Elon Musk's Neuralink proposed putting smart dust in our neocortex that will link all 7.5 billion brains on the planet together into one giant synthetic global brain. The argument is why would you want to have the power of your one lowly brain when you can have the power of 7 billion brains? This is what we're in the midst of right now with Elon Musk and his desire to implant technology in our human brain that he believes will ultimately save us from artificial intelligence. And if he can't save us on the Earth, he plans to make a backup copy of ourselves, blast it to Mars. I thought Earth was supposed to be our home. Why are we suddenly looking at escaping to Mars? Well, because they know the dangers of this technology, and that, in fact, could be the doom of humanity if we allow this technology to progress at the pace that it's currently progressing at. Musk's lifetime goal is to see 1 million people on Mars because he wants to make a backup drive for humanity. What if we spent those millions and billions of dollars trying to escape the planet on trying to understand our brain and its capacities? In a TED Talk given in 2010, neuroscientist V.S. Ramachandran observed that about 75,000 years ago, there's our number again, two separate scientists in different fields, both giving us the same dates. 75,000 years ago, there was a sudden emergence and rapid spread of skills unique to human beings, like the use of tools and the use of fire, shelters, and the use of language, plus the ability to read another person's mind and interpret their behavior and intentions. All of this happened basically at once, says V.S. Ramachandran. And this is the formation or the kickstarting of Hoffaker's superbrain. So what occurred to make this happen? The brain capacity was already in place 200,000 years ago, but something happened about 100,000 to 75,000 years ago. Ramachandran claims it was the appearance of mirror neurons in our neocortex that gave us the ability to imitate one another's actions. Monkey see, monkey do, in other words. When these are activated, a person can watch someone do a complex task and learn how to do it immediately. They don't have to go through the thousands of years of evolution in order to learn how to accomplish that specific task. Ramachandran and researchers at UCLA found that mirror neurons in the frontal area of our neocortex will fire when a patient watches another patient being poked. This is why they're called mirror neurons. And we can now mirror one another as a result of the activation of these special neurons. The mirror neurons actually, says Ramachandran, dissolve the barrier between myself and others. They form an invisible web, if you will, linking my brain to your brain to all the other billions of brains on the planet. It's as if we already have an intranet within our consciousness. And using this ability, we know that we can now use sacred art as a way to activate our neocortex. By mirroring what we see in these images, we are actually promoting, or actually programming rather, our mirror neurons to fire as if as if our mirror neurons are firing, as if we are being transfigured into light exactly the way we see Jesus being transfigured in this painting. The epigenetic model says that we can change our body by thought alone. And so if we think that as we're looking at this painting of Jesus and his neurons firing in an extraordinary way, mirror neuron theory says that our mirror neurons are also firing in sympathy or in empathy with Jesus at this moment. The theory of neuroplasticity says you can change your brain by thought alone. So maybe we don't need smart dust sprinkled in our neocortex in order to change our brain, to put us on the path of ascension. Maybe we just need to begin to mirror all of the divine figures who have accomplished the ascension before us. But let's get back to our question of what was that something that activated our mirror neurons in our neocortex? What was it? Cooking meat, psychedelic substances, climate change, all are involved. Earlier, we talked about our relationship with the galaxy and the galactic center as a possibility. There are numerous contributing factors. But why not cosmic visitors, as the ancient Sumerians and Egyptians claimed? Why not extraterrestrial visitors who infused humanity with a light or a vibration and transmitted their light or vibration to us, giving us the same capabilities that they possess, perhaps activating our neocortex just by thinking it into activation. Throughout Egypt, we learned stories of a god named Ptah, the god of technology, who was actually credited with fashioning our human body. Here's Ptah's business card. It says he is the architect of heaven and earth, the master craftsman in working metals, sculptor, designer, and fashioner of the bodies of men. He was a blacksmith, sculptor, and mason of the gods. Now, what I find most interesting about this depiction of Ptah is that this creator god has in his hieroglyph what appears to be a double helix of DNA. And this makes perfect sense if the Egyptian stories are true, that he is a celestial being who came from Sirius and had a hand in tweaking our DNA, creating our present form of our body. What was the purpose of his tweaking? Well, the answer is that in the Egyptian religion, Ptah enabled humans to attain their robe or garment of light, their ascension bodies. This is Nefertari here, a beautiful scene from her tomb in Upper Egypt. We see Nefertari wearing I'm going to go back. We see Nefertari wearing a transparent linen garment with a red sash tied around her belt, or tied around her waist. That symbolizes an umbilical cord, a thread of Indra's web. The bright white garment of light symbolizes her attainment of her ascension body. And in this depiction, she is offering thanks in the form of 4 linen strips to Ptah, saying to him, "Thank you, Ptah, for tweaking my DNA and my interpretation of this scene so that I am able to attain my light body or resurrection body exactly like you are wearing in this scene as well." This is the something that I believe activated our neocortex, activating these abilities within us, not so that we can become a slave race, as some have proposed, or any other reasons other than our DNA is tweaked in order to become a more effective, in order for our body to become a more effective ladder or stairway to heaven, an ascension vehicle for our divine spark. And this is why we see the double helix in Ptah's hieroglyph and why it matches the backbone or Stairway to Heaven of Osiris. All of Egyptian religion is dedicated to the idea that the gods came down. Ptah came here and assisted us in tweaking our DNA and assisting us so that we can attain our light body, our resurrection body, and ascend into the heavens to become a celestial being, a star being. The pyramid texts are devoted to this idea that humans can become like lightning, that they can become plasma beings, that they can become star beings and travel for eternity on boats of heaven as celestial or star beings. This is what the Egyptian religion is about. This is what Christianity is ultimately about. For that light body that Jesus manifested is the plasma body of the divine gods of ancient Egypt. And this is exactly what subconsciously the engineers, the gods and goddesses of Silicon Valley, are attempting to recreate with their technology. They believe that the next step in human evolution is for us to become machines so that we can then colonize the galaxy. And that is certainly one possible path. But the ancient Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Tibetans, the Christians would all argue that we can do this spiritually. And in fact, that is what the human body is designed to do, is ultimately to bring in this cosmic energy from Indra's web and to infuse the web of earth life with it so that humans can ascend, that humans can become like Osiris and attain our light bodies, our resurrection bodies, and ascend into the heavens as a star being, riding upon the celestial ship of eternity, the Ark of the Millions of Years, the wormhole ship, as a star being and traveling amongst all those trillions of galaxies through the interlinking network of stargates and wormholes that permeate Indra's web, going from Earth through Orion's gate onto the center of the Milky Way galaxy and beyond. It was the quest of the ancient Egyptians, just as it is for us today. Our origins relate to that quest. The reason why we are here is to fulfill that quest and to link with the ascended masters, the celestial beings of ancient Egypt, of Sumeria, early Christianity, all who have gone before us and have collected the psycho-spiritual tools of the divine beings, the resurrection stick, the lotus crab, the key of life, the crown of wisdom. All of these tools are within us, awaiting activation by our thought alone. For thinking makes it so. So moving forward now, we realize that this theory places the arrival of the gods, who call themselves the Watchers, at some time after the neocortex was shifted, no later than 75,000 years ago. How did they know that our neocortex had been activated? I mean, there's no point really in them coming here if they can't interact with a species that's capable of immediately learning from them and replicating what they see. So how did Ptah and Thoth and Osiris and these other celestial beings who came to Earth as civilization bearers know that we were ready? Well, isn't it apparent that they must have known that the human neocortex was ready? Had they been watching us? Or does it make more sense that they're the ones that activated our neocortex for the purpose of assisting us in our ascension, of shoring up this distant part of Indra's web and polishing up this jewel of Earth so that she's ready for her ascension? I believe they had a role in switching on our neocortex. And this is what we see reflected in artwork in Egypt, where we see Thoth, the god of divine magic, on one side of the tree, and Ptah and Sekhmet on the other side. And in the tree, in the sycamore tree of life, is Adam. It's actually Ramses II, but it's exactly the same story that Christianity, that Judaism and Christianity tells about the tree of knowledge and the tree of life, the tree of wisdom, and divine beings that seek to give humanity this wisdom. Did these watcher beings activate the neocortex? Makes sense to me that they did. And again, this is what we see in Egypt, where now it's Seti, kneeling in the tree before Ptah, who is writing into the palm of his hand. And that tree, by the way, looks very suspiciously similar to Leonardo's brain that we saw in the awakening of Adam. Ptah is literally writing the secrets of eternity, the secrets of ascension, into the palm of King Seti's hand as he kneels in the tree of life. This is the great transfer of wisdom that Ptah was preparing our DNA to be able to receive, to be able to create a vessel capable of allowing the soul to ascend. So throughout Egypt, we see these incredible examples of the gods, Thoth and Ptah and others, in this activating humans who are kneeling in the tree. And we see that these figures are receiving an attunement. They're receiving the knowledge of the hundreds of thousands of years, in this case here from Sekhmet, who is Ptah's consort. Seti is kneeling between Sekhmet and Horus, who also offers the secrets of the hundreds of thousands of years. In other words, the secrets of eternity, the secrets of ascension. Both have their hand on Seti's incredible crown that reflects his activated crown chakra and his ability to perceive the finer vibrations emanating from Indra's web. Evidence that Seti is in the process of receiving an attunement that will assist in his ascension comes from the name of that crown, the Sheshed circlet, which means Sheshed meaning luminous. He's receiving his luminous crown to go with his luminous body. Textual evidence for the term luminous can be found in the pyramid texts as well as in later funerary literature, where they denote the radiant appearance of the stellar gods and of Thoth and the deceased. So this is right away telling us that Thoth is a stellar being, he's a light being, and he is here portrayed transmitting the secrets of becoming a stellar being or a light being to King Seti. And if we look closely, we see that Seti has a double skin. I believe that one is his flesh and blood body, and the other skin, the outline of his nose and his lips and chin symbolizes his attainment of his second body or his light body, which is the point of this illumination. The acquisition of these skills, the ascension skills and attributes by the awakening of the neocortex, is described in Christian theology as consuming the fruit of the tree of knowledge and the tree of knowledge and the tree of good and evil. Before this time, when our neocortex isn't activated, humanity lived in a time of innocence when we were connected with all that is. There was really no differentiation between self and world. This act of allowing us to, through the activation of our neocortex, make judgments between good and evil, male and female, right and wrong, light and dark, which is what you and I do thousands of times a day, cut us off from the primordial state, our cosmic source, from Indra's web, and was the original sin committed by Adam and Eve that subsequently became known as the fall of man in the book of Genesis. Esoteric Judaism tells us that Adam and Eve, we originally did not have coat, flesh and blood. Rather, we wore coats of light called the robe of light, the resurrection body, the glory body. The Zohar, the Jewish mystical book, tells us that when Adam dwelt in the Garden of Eden, he was clothed in the celestial garment, which is the garment of heavenly light, light of that light which was used in the Garden of Eden. This is the same stellar body that Thoth, the celestial being, dwelled in. And that when he activated Seti's neocortex, he enabled him to reclaim that light body. What this means is that when we lived in the Garden of Eden, we were in a different form. We had what was called perfect bodies of light. And this is what all of human history has been aiming towards, is the reclamation of our original perfect light bodies, which means for thousands of years we have been trying to transcend our skin. As the Genesis tale says, after Eve ate the apple of wisdom of the tree of knowledge delivered by the bright serpent, we were expelled from Eden. We fell from our original perfection. A gate was constructed at the east of Eden and guarded by angels. And Ever since then, we have been trying to reclaim our original light body status and ascend into the stars. This is telling us that our origins is about our point of origin is a point of incarceration in a way. It's a point of a period of evolution where humans are perhaps doing what no other beings maybe have done before, and inhabiting a physical human body in this way, and forgetting our connection with our source, but yet having hardwired within our neocortex the capability of reunifying with that source. And that's what we're in the process of doing now, is awakening, remembering, putting ourselves back together, and reclaiming our place in the cosmos. For Buddhists, the ultimate goal of spiritual practice is to awaken to one's true nature, which is the nature of a fully enlightened Buddha. The fully enlightened Buddha wears the rainbow garment of light, the rainbow body, the garment of glory, which is the same as the garment of glory worn by Adam and Eve in our original place in the Garden of Eden before the so-called fall. Every spiritual tradition, as I said a moment ago, has a teaching about how we attain or re-attain our glorious rainbow light body. My work has been devoted to weaving together what these various traditions say about the light body, how we activate it, and how we reconnect with the divine beings who have come and gone before us. What I have shown is that in the Tibetan tradition of Padmasambhava, who is the great master teacher who acquired this perfect light body, that when he wears the crown of glory and holds the resurrection stick and has the Vajra, the Egyptian, or rather the Tibetan key of life, and manifests the golden rays on the lotus throne, he's doing exactly what Ptah sought to do with the activation of our DNA, to unlock the ability within us to be able to transform from our flesh and blood state into our ascended light being state, to once again become whole, holy, and complete beings, mirroring the body of the celestial beings. And the great promise of Christianity, of course, the omega point of Christianity, is that when the second Adam, Christ, appears at the second coming, we shall be like him. We will be transformed into bodies of glory, mirroring that of Christ. This doesn't mean we're going to be 5 foot 10 inch tall Jewish guys with long hair and a beard. It means, rather, as in this painting by William Holman Hunt, that we are going to manifest our rainbow light body, our glory body, our resurrection body. We shall be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trump will sound, and the dead will be raised imperishable, and we shall be changed. This is the promise and the premise, once again, of this spontaneous, instantaneous moment that we are living right now, in which we can spontaneously and instantaneously transform into our true form. And we do this by letting go of human suffering, by unraveling ourselves from the tangled web that we weave in our lives, and looking at our lives and letting go of things that don't have to do with our highest, purest self, and beginning to live from the perspective of our awakened ascension intelligence, to begin to think like our ascended selves, and then to begin to act and do the things that our ascended self would be doing. And in so doing, we begin to gradually raise our vibration and let go of the shackles and the ties rather, that bind us to the earth, negative emotions and suffering and false perceptions about who we truly are. And again, this is the moment that we are at right now, where Silicon Valley wants us to indeed drop our physical bodies, just as resurrection and ascension teachings talk, but they want us to turn ourselves into cartoons, where the contents of our brain, which they equate with our soul, will be copied into a cartoon version of ourselves that lives in a black box in Silicon Valley. But that's not ascension. That's a descension, in my opinion. And the only way that we can rescue the human race from a life of suffering in this black box is to educate and illuminate as many people about the existence of their true second self. Not the one that they're building on Google and Facebook and Amazon and eBay, but our light being self. And this is what, again, my work is devoted to, is to trying to help people to be able to visualize, to understand, to connect with this next better version of ourselves. And that is what this time is about. Because humans are made in the perfect image of God, we have the spiritual capacity to participate in or mirror Jesus's divine glory as image bearers and reactivate our light bodies. If you don't like Jesus, look at Buddha, look at Ishtar, look at Mary, look at Padmasambhava, look at numerous other examples of beings who have completed this process of ascension. The Bible is specific about us possessing the spiritual capacity and the genetic capacity to do this. As was the man of dust or carbon or earth, so also are those who are of the dust, says 1 Corinthians. And as is the man of heaven, so also are those who are of heaven. Just as we have borne the image of the man of dust, the man of carbon, our flesh and blood body, we shall also bear the image of the man of heaven. The man of heaven is the stellar being. It's Thoth, it's Ptah, it's Isis, it's Ishtar, it's Jesus, it's Padmasambhava, the celestial beings who have the ability to wander Indra's web. So God created man in his own image, says the book of Genesis. This is our origin point again. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. This is a very key point because it tells us that we have within us the very image of God. And what we need are the tools that will enable us to awaken this. Part of these tools are the activations of our consciousness, but also imagery is another key tool as well. I'm very fascinated by this particular image from 13th century in England, where we see Jesus as the creator God holding the compass and with the earth in his other hand. And when we look at his compass and look at the image of the earth, we see that what he is actually working on and pointing to is what today is referred to as a Mandelbrot set. This is a very powerful fractal that encodes within it a very powerful teaching about our origins, but also about where we are going as our next step. The idea with this fractal image, the Mandelbrot set, is that at every level of magnification, the pattern of this fractal repeats itself into infinity. It is a mathematical icon that has been called the thumbprint of God. The metaphysical message of the Mandelbrot set corresponds precisely to Indra's net, the story that we talked about at the very beginning of the interconnected network of galaxies, of souls, of planets. So as we look at this image here of the Mandelbrot set, that we see that as we magnify it, it transforms into itself at every level of magnification. And if a programmer looks at the Mandelbrot set and wants to change some tiny detail, maybe make one of the bumps go away, they can't do it without going back to the original equation and changing it. But if they do that, they change everything. They tear the universe down and build another one from scratch. So within the Mandelbrot set, we see the richness of our unity and also the richness of our individuality. We are, in our bodies, baby Mandelbrot sets. And that's what I'm going to show you here in just a moment. So let's just follow this. We're just zooming in, picking one of the levels here and zooming into it and seeing that at each level we see the same thing. Researchers into the Mandelbrot set took this mathematical formula one step forward and created what they called the Buddha-brot, which is a fractal rendering technique related to the Mandelbrot set. Its name reflects its uncanny resemblance to classical depictions of the ascended Buddha. seated in a meditation pose with a forehead mark and traditional top mark. The image that we're looking at here is a mathematical equation similar to Mandelbrot's set that suddenly manifested an image that precisely resembles a meditating Buddha. So here's the correspondence between a Buddha in meditation and the Buddha-Brot set. As I'm looking at these images, and I love the rainbow color, of course, it took me to a realization. And that is that within us, we hold the image of God. And many of us are fooled, I believe, by the idea that that image is of our flesh and blood bodies. But it's not. The image of God that we are made as a copy of is similar to the Buddha-Brot that we see here. It's our light being that we are made in the image of God, not our physical body. The similarity of the form of the Mandelbrot set with representations of the meditating Buddha has been frequently noted. And if Buddha was indeed used to symbolically represent the Mandelbrot set in ancient Hindu culture, this brings about an amazing and significant discovery, because the Mandelbrot set was supposedly only discovered in the 1970s and early 80s thanks to computers. I think what we've tapped into with the Mandelbrot set and the Buddha-Brot set is something very fundamental about our being, about our origins, that we are made in the image of God, but that image is in fact the rainbow body, the resurrection body, the glory body. And the similarity in form of the Mandelbrot set and the representations of the rainbow body therefore make perfect sense. This is the image that we will mirror in our ascension. We will look like these ascended beings, not in a physical form, but in a metaphysical form, in our light body form. This is the next step in our evolution. And the promise is that once we attain this next level, we will be able to phase back and forth between our immortal light bodies and our mortal physical bodies in order to assist others who wish to or seek to make this transformation. So through the lens of the rainbow body, the Mandelbrot set, and Indra's net, we can see that our souls reflect each other. We have traced our origins to this vast this vast web of the universe. And we can see that my soul, like your soul, contains the reflections of all other souls in the universe, in all one or over 1 trillion galaxies. In fact, the entire universe, according to this teaching, can be found in my soul, and in each reflection, in each soul, and so on ad infinitum. This is the great message of the universe. This is the great message of our origins. And to me, comprehending this message is the realization of all human spiritual evolution and represents our beautiful moment together. So I want to thank once again Neil Gower and everyone at Portal to Ascension, everyone here for participating, and everyone who will catch the replay. I hope you will continue to support Portal to Ascension and the work that we're all doing as collective ascenders to try to unite the human race under the fundamental principle that we are all truly interconnected, and the slight changes that I make in my light being and my vibration impact you, and the changes that you make in your vibration impact me. And it spreads out ad infinitum. I hope you'll consider visiting my website, williamhenry.net, where you can find lots of materials about my work on the rainbow light body. They're available on flash drives. You can go to my store, learn more about that. You can learn about the tours that my wife Claire and I are offering to Egypt and to southern France, always in pursuit of the mysteries and secrets of ascension. And I hope you'll also consider visiting us here in Nashville for our upcoming workshop, the Shining Ones of the Golden Sun. We are in the process of creating all kinds of wonderful things on our planet. And it's my pleasure and my honor to have spent this time with you today. Namaste to all of you. God bless, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.